Welcome to another episode of Prospective here on Tales from the Flipside. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Guys, would you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Aaron. You can catch me on Instagram at YeezyYee. Also follow me on Whatnot to catch some pretty good deals.
Hey everybody, it's me, man, Mercenat, coming at you live, and I do weekly haul videos, so check me out.
Hello, everyone. This is Rob Comics 81 coming to you live. No foreigns for me tonight. It's all modern.
Nice. Good to see everybody. This is Tony of Blue Green Artifacts, and I strongly recommend do not miss Mercenat's haul videos. If you do any kind of speculation, check them out. What you got, Joe?
I think he's frozen.
His connection is gone.
Yep.
I was going to say that's a hell of a dramatic pause.
And I guess I'll introduce myself. Chris Colbert, Colbert's Comics. I'm trying to be a regular on our Dealer Flipside show, and you can always catch me here bullshitting about comics.
All right. And before we get into the list, I just wanted to kind of explain our process. So every week, besides just the panelists, we have a group of about 20 people that we discuss different books that are potential pickups, and that we definitely see that are at a low price that have big, huge gains for them. So every week, each panelist nominates about 1 to 2 books, if not more, and then the whole group votes on them, and then the top 10 make our list. So that's what makes our list different from a lot of others. We're not telling you to, we don't recommend you paying top dollar for these books. That a lot of them you can find in back issue bins. So I just kind of want to clarify why we pick our top 10 books, and then a lot of y'all have also submitted books to us to vote on, and we're still gladly willing to hear what books you think that we should be checking out and vote on.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into it. So at number 10, we have Droids #1, the first series from 1986. So this is the 4th Star Wars comic from initial release of the initial Star Wars, followed by Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and so on and so forth. This is definitely a nostalgia play. Many of you, if you're old enough to remember, that there was a Droids animated series that ran for quite a bit of time in the late 80s, early 90s. It is an extremely rare book with only 66 copies in 9.8 as compared to the other major Star Wars book releases of that time. And this is also placed into the return of the Droids series to Disney Plus that'll be coming, if not later this year, early next year. So definitely be on the lookout for these. These can probably be found pretty easy in back issue bins. Try not to pay more than $10 to $20 for it, like if you're buying it off of somebody's wall.
Yeah, I'll just say I didn't think this was making the list. I put this book up just as a flyer, mainly because we're seeing 80s animated, any 80s animation comic. I mean, we're seeing Silverhawks pop. We're seeing all these titles pop that 98% of collectors now have no idea what those animated shows even were. So this is not by any stretch of the imagination. This is not anybody's favorite Star Wars book. This was not everybody's favorite cartoon at the time. But just the fact that it is Star Wars and in high grade, it is tough. it should be on your radar. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. At number 9, we have Punisher War Journal Volume 1, number 7.
Okay, so this was my pick. You have the continuation from number 6, and you have Jim Lee, who is a fan favorite artist since forever, doing 2 of Marvel's most popular characters. And and what I love about this is that this has the action. You have, you have early Jim Lee, who still is just otherworldly, doing these two characters, the Punisher and Wolverine. This is definitely one of my favorite covers. And this book is still relatively cheap. I think if you're lucky, you can get this book for under $10. I think at worst, you can get this for maybe 20. In nice near mint condition. So this is definitely, I gotta stop saying definitely, but this is a book that really should be on the radar if you don't already have it. This seems like if you've been collecting for a number of years, this is probably the type of book that you kind of already have. And this is the type of book that has popped. This is like already in your collection. You really don't know how you have it. You don't know how you got it, but you're glad you do have it. And for you younger collectors and you newer collectors, this is a great book to have and a great book to find for cheap.
Absolutely.
I just noticed something. Is Wolverine always in that pose, like whenever he's on the cover with someone else? So I'm just joking there. But anyways, let's move on.
At number 8, we have Master of Kung Fu, Volume 1, number 126, the JTC trading card variant. Oh, Tony, I'm mute.
You're muted, Tony.
Sorry, we had a dog issue here. I thought I'd save you guys from, and didn't reverse it fast enough. But yeah, this is, there's obviously we've had the Shang-Chi movie that came out. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to see it. If you haven't, by all means go. It's probably not my favorite MCU movie, but that would be hard to win that title right now. But definitely quality movie. It's got the critics on its side. It's got the box office. Finally, the box office seems to be coming back. So that just tells us that we're going to see, we kind of knew it anyways. We're going to see more Shang-Chi. We're going to see a sequel. We're going to see him in the Avengers. Who knows, what crossovers he could have. Who knows what other characters could pop up out of it. We've been talking for a few weeks now, though. There aren't a hell of a lot of Shang-Chi books that people are specking on yet. There's his first appearance. There's the first Razor Fist. The first, what's his name? Death Dealer. Was that the other guy in the movie?
Yes.
There's a couple more. Avengers World 2, the 1 in 25 Alessio has popped, but
3.
3. Thank you. But like compared to Black Panther, 5 years before the Black Panther movie came out, there weren't a hell of a lot of Black Panther books people were specking on, and that's completely changed for Black Panther. There's a good 20, 30, 40 of them that you could get that are high dollar now. So trying to find what Shang-Chi books might be turning that corner. These trading card variants have been on a little bit of an uptick. There have been a few of them that have really started creeping up and up. The Moon Girl, the Riri. A lot of them are, what do you call it? The
Mephisto?
No, what do you call the where you have to qualifier? Thank you.
Oh, the qualifier. Oh.
A lot of them are qualifiers. I did check with Steve. This one is not a qualifier. This was Master of Kung Fu 126. It's kind of like a one-shot they came out with in 2017. But nice cover. Trading card variants going up. Not a huge printed book in the first place. I think like under 17K. total printed, so you got to figure less than 3,000-4,000 of these. I don't know, just not a bad play and really cheap right now.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Number 7, we have Jessica Jones, Volume 2, Number 4, the Jeff DeCall variant.
Yeah, this was my pick. It was a great book. You know, when it came out, you know, instantly I was watching the Netflix show, and you know, she's always drinking in the show. And then on this one, DeCall put the nice little glass of I'm gonna call it the cognac.
Now, Hennessy.
Cognac. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of Hennessy in one glass. I'm gonna say cognac. You could drink that a little smoother, you know. But overall, this is an amazing cover by DeCall. And, you know, there's a lot of variants with Jessica Jones on it, but I put this one at the top of the list. So this is just a cover art favorite for me. And he even wrote his name on one of the documents on the desk. So he kind of threw that in with the artwork, which is amazing with the shadows.
Cool.
So just an amazing book.
Oh, he's sneaky like that.
Yeah. There's been a few whispers and murmurs that multiple characters from the Netflix world will be potentially brought into the MCU canon. So not only this book, but people have completely stopped paying attention to that Alias #1 as well. So like I was able to pick up a copy just last week for like $50. That's like a 9.8 contender. So like be on the lookout. Like people have moved on to the next thing, you know, and if there's a possibility of her making a resurgence or a reappearance, if they, you know, delete the Netflix characters that didn't resonate with people, Iron Fist, they'll be better for it. So be on the lookout for these books.
I hope you're right, Chris, because I think that casting was spot on with her.
Number 6, Invincible Iron Man Volume 3, Number 10, the second print. All right, so this is not one of my picks, but I am definitely in support of it. All of these early Riri appearances, if you can find them, grab them. I mean, between 7, 9, first appearance, first cameo, first full, first cover, first Ironheart, first baby daddy, her dad, her mama, like everybody is getting love because like Riri is that new hotness right now as far as the MCU is concerned. So whether or not this book will hold long-term heat remains to be seen. But you still got plenty of time between now and her making her debut in Black Panther 2 to get you a copy, find them in back issue bins. Again, with the second print where they started putting that featuring Riri Williams insignia on there, just, you know, for people who aren't paying attention, sometimes you got to beat them over the head with it. So yeah, if you find these out in the wild, definitely scoop them up at a reasonable price, mind you. As we said earlier in the show, this is not a go buy this as $100 wall book raw. Like, don't do that. But if you find it for $10 or $15 or less, probably makes sense as a buy.
It wouldn't hurt for the first prints either.
Nope. Also not a bad idea either.
Shout out to Samson, My Comic Journey, who nominated this book for this week.
We got to get him on one of these weeks, man. It's been a while.
I know he's in the process of moving and everything, so
No excuses.
yeah, it's probably his girlfriend that's keeping him from this.
The shot's fired. And number 5, we have Special Marvel Edition, Volume 1, Number 16.
So this goes back to everything that I said about the last Shang-Chi book. Obviously, this is his second appearance, number 16. If you look at the price difference between 15 and 16, it is crazy right now. I couldn't find any 9.8 numbers for this 16, but a 9.6 sold in the last couple months for like $370, something like that. Like if you look at the number 15 right now, I believe a 9.8 just sold for $20,000, and I think 9.6s are pushing between $5,000 and $6,000. So that's a big old gap. You got a first appearance of Midnight. Who knows if that will ever mean anything? But you know, again, you're priced out of the big boy book. This would be a nice second thought.
No, absolutely. And to come over the top on that as well, I've started watching as Nico, our Flipside family member on the main show on Monday nights, mentioned that prices have started to slip on that number 15. It still may be out of some people's price range, but give it time and keep your eyes on it because, as Mel like to say, it's the "what have you done for me lately" mentality. It's, oh, you just had a movie, I'm not thinking about you for the next 2 years. There's a strong possibility that if you stay vigilant, watch for auctions, you might be able to swoop in there and pick you up at 8.5 or a 9.0, but in that 500 to 800 range. They're already slipping down into like that sub 1,000 point as of this week. I've been watching 8.5s and 9.0s. So be vigilant. You might be able to scoop in there and pick you up a copy when people have moved on to Eternals and No Way Home.
Yep.
I know I've got like 2 copies of number 15. I put one up on eBay and I'm thinking, what am I doing? This thing is, it's gonna jump back up. So I just had to take it down and I'm keeping both of them.
Yeah, if you ain't hurting for the cash, sit on them if you got them. But at the same time, if you ain't got one, be on the lookout because everybody is in unload mode right now. The same thing's going to happen. And again, it's different with a hero versus a villain. But once that Carnage movie drops, everybody's going to be unloading 361. So, play cleanup crew and just come through and just sweep them on up. At number 4, we have Dead Boy Detectives number 1, the 1-in-13 ratio variant.
Okay, this is another pick of mine. This is the first appearance of Crystal Palace Von Hovercraft. She is a recent ally of the Dead Boy Detectives, and the Dead Boy Detectives are in development at HBO Max. And so it just makes sense that this character, it makes sense that this character will show up eventually, either sooner or later. And this book here, this is the 1-in-13 variant, and she is on the cover. She is not on the cover of the regular. And this variant here is well under $10. You can find a nice near mint raw copy for, I would say, about $8. Maybe like $12 shipped. And this is definitely something. This is certainly something that you should be on the lookout for. And the buy-in is low. And the chances are high with this book. And it's a great cover. Great looking cliff chain cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead,
Carter.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, Carter, I know Dead Boy Detectives first showed up in Sandman.
Right.
Do you think, they're doing Sandman the series.
It's
issue
Netflix.
25 would show up. Issue 25 would be like maybe season 3 kind of thing. Do you think they could be in both?
Ooh.
Well, I think the issue with that is that Netflix is doing the Sandman and HBO is doing, so I don't see a whole lot of synergy happening there, only for that reason alone, because 2 different production studios own or managing each property respectively.
Right.
When I first saw this cover, immediately fell in love with it. I had to look up what was going on with it. I saw that it was a first appearance and swooped up as many copies as I could find out in the wild.
Yeah. As we've already seen with these kind of non-conventional Vertigo DC storylines making their way to HBO Max, Doom Patrol is a more known entity, but Danny the Living Street and all those random, what was it, Gaiman stuff that was, or was that Morrison who did that run of Doom Patrol that they've been focusing so heavily on? Either way, those books saw a jump in value. Now, whether or not it'll hold long term, that remains to be seen. But if you can get in at like the type of prices that Carter's talking right now, who cares? Who cares? You'll turn a profit. unload them books like it's no tomorrow, and buy something that makes you happier.
But it's a great cover, great to have for your collection.
Yes.
Indeed.
Well,
This isn't my pick, but this is I forgot whose it was, but it's Fallen Sun, The Death of Captain America. This is a Kate Bishop cover. Ultra Maximus on Drunken Chat covered this on the set of her first cover. It's a triple threat because it has Kate Bishop. A lot of people wasn't reading the series, and this is a Michael Turner cover as well. So it's a really, really great story if you want to read it. It's a 6-book set. There's a blank variant, and there's a Lian Yu Wolverine cover on the last book. So the series is nice. I read it. I spec'd on it thinking it was going to be Captain America 3, but it ended up being Civil War because they got Spider-Man around the same time. So this is right after Cap's assassination after 25. This is like his eulogy in the comic books. So this is a nice pick.
Shout out to Red Hood Comics. Or
That's
Hood
right.
Comics.
Red Hood did it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
At number 2, we have Punisher War Journal, Volume 1, number 6.
All right, this is another pick of mine. Previously, we talked about number 7, and here we go with part 1 of the Africa saga. And another point that I wanted to make about Jim Lee doing Wolverine. Jim Lee is one of the most popular artists, one of the most fan favorite artists to ever do Wolverine. And to have him early in his career, doing on Punisher War Journal. And when you think about Hulk 340, and I mentioned this in my haul videos. You think about Hulk 340, you think about Wolverine number 8. Those are Copper Age classic covers now, and this one should be no different. I would say this one is iconic, but yeah, this has all the makings of another Copper Age classic cover. All right, so and this is another staple of anybody's comic book collection. If you're a Wolverine fan, a Punisher fan, if you're a Marvel fan in general, this is a terrific cover. And I want to say, what is this? Maybe a $20 book in really high grade, and again at worst like maybe 30. So I think the buy-in is relatively low, especially when you think about Wolverine number 8 and Hulk 340. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is a great book with a lot of uptick. Very classic, very classic. All the makings of a classic.
And I'll also say for my, the Last of Us, Kevin Smith, fans out there, if you know your nerddom history, this was one of the items that Brody left at Renee's house, including his copy of Fletch and the remote control to his TV. So a little bit of nerddom, trivia right there for you.
Oh, and thank you, Joey. Yeah, this is the first time. Punisher and Wolverine meet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I totally spaced on that point. Yep, first meeting.
Yeah, good stuff.
And last but not least, we have Captain America, Sam Wilson, Volume 1, number 12.
Yes, this is my pick. I was in my storage unit and I came across some books looking at them, and I saw this and I was like, it's Tula Lotay, it's Shuri in a Black Panther costume with the HUD display around her face. It's just a gorgeous cover. It's not a ratio variant. I think or is it a 1 in 10? I can't remember. But all I know is this is a part of that month where it's the 50th anniversary of Black Panther. And this was one of the covers that was one of the top ones for me, with her in the Black Panther costume outside of the Stephanie Hahn's Claw series. And on the census, there's only 3 copies graded, believe it or not. And there's only 1 copy of the regular cover, which is the AmeriCops. So it might not be as popular as others, but this is a beautiful Shuri cover.
Yeah, Tula Lote is one of the, there's about 6 artists that I just buy everything that they do cover art for. Tula Lote is on that list, and she's got some really, really great covers, and this is one of them.
Amazing cover.
Absolutely.
Iconic.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if I could find it real quick, but couldn't find out if it was an incentive or a ratio or anything like that. Yeah, so that was our top 10 list, and we're going to move on to our roundtable discussion. Chris, take it away of what we're going to be covering today.
So we're going to be discussing second prints and maybe delving into a little bit of bad eBay listings, misspellings, and whatever else people feel like discussing tonight.
All right.
Hey,
so, yeah, go ahead.
Aaron, time out before you go. Actually, when I saw this Shuri book in the mix, I did reach out to Steve on that, and he said that it wasn't a ratio variant, but it was I couldn't think of the name before. What's the word?
Qualifier.
Qualifier.
For the love of God. Qualifier. 90% of Captain America 10 to buy this copy of 12. So not a crazy variant, not a crazy qualifier, but any kind of qualifier is going to eliminate a bunch of retailers. So
Not true story.
Yes. Yeah, especially a lot of those larger retailers that order like so many for the previous issue, and then there's no way they're going to keep on increasing the numbers as they keep going. So.
Right.
Did not know that. I thought it was a ratio.
Alrighty. Yeah.
So dive into it.
Yep. So I just threw up a couple of different second printings. So we have Batman 608, the second print, and Batman 457, the second print.
Yep. So this whole discussion is going to be kind of around scenarios where second prints have kind of eclipsed or later printings have eclipsed their first printing brethren. And this is a prime example. Once the 608 second print came out, nobody was checking for that number 1 anymore, or for that 608 first printing anymore. And on the same side, with the Batman 457, you have the introduction of a new Robin. So this is the second print newsstand edition. So extremely rare, falling in the same level of rarity as those DCU printings and things of that nature. And it's one that many shops just kind of, overlook a lot of times. Like they just, aren't paying attention when it comes up and may throw it in a back issue bin thinking that, oh, it's just a second printing, or it's just, a Robin nobody cared about. So again, definitely one of those things to be on the lookout for. I mean, everybody's hip to the 608 second printing, so good luck with that one. But the 457, you might be able to stumble across.
I remember back in early 2003, when this first came out, like shortly thereafter, this book was already like a $50 book, and I remember for quite a few years, I was buying like the second prints of all the DC titles that came out, like especially Batman Superman number 8. It was a sketch cover. I think it was like a sketch Michael Turner cover, and I remember doing that for a time just based off of the strength of Batman 608. I could never find one for cheap, and then I came across one like maybe a few years ago in a box for like $10. It was like probably a VF copy or something like that. But Yeah, man. That the quest to find that 608 second print, that was real. That was very real.
Well, and then don't forget about the fact that so for anybody who's not aware, this is Jim Lee doing what Jim Lee does best. This was the beginning of the Hush storyline, which in many people's eyes is one of the like best Batman storylines of the last 20 years at this point. Because let's be real about it, there wasn't a whole lot of things popping in the 90s and early 2000s when it came to Batman.
608 got me back into comics. I stopped collecting comics in 1994, and when I heard that Jim Lee was doing Batman, it was all over it, and that's what got me back into comics.
Yep. And also there is a sister cover of this in the form of Superman 204. Mm-hmm. So you have Superman in daylight standing on the gargoyle in Metropolis, and then the flipped image of that for 608 is Batman standing at night on the gargoyle in Gotham. So like that makes for a very killer set to display, both of which are a little on the more difficult side to find in 9.8. So yeah, like this is one of those scenarios where it's firing on all cylinders. So be on the lookout for it. If you can get it, definitely invest. But again, I know the purists in us are like, oh, second printing, poo-poo. But hey, sometimes it's just you get an opportunity to sit back, look at, survey the field again and be like, all right, I'm gonna come back stronger with an even better image for the second book or for the second printing cover.
Hey, if it's hot, it's hot.
Yeah. Something I want to point out for if you're hunting for the Batman 457, you can tell it's a second print when it says new Robin issue at the top. Yep. So the first printings do not have that, but there is a direct version also. So definitely, if you find that second print, definitely pull it out to see if it's that newsstand. Because I mean,
I'll even has a story about that. Yeah.
Here's my question about later printings, and maybe you guys have some insight on it. There's later printings that end up it being close to a value as the first print, like if it's a key book, like say First Miles or First Riri, something like that. There's later printings that eclipse the first book. There's later printings of quote unquote important books that don't really ever have any value. Sometimes it seems a little arbitrary about which later printings. New Mutants 100, you can get the second print for like nothing.
True, but
not that 100's a giant key book, but you look at like the first appear or the later printing for First Bishop. Again, that's a nothing book. It doesn't have a tiny print run, but it's a hell of a lot smaller print run than the first print. So what makes a later printing valuable in your mind? Is it just the heat? Is it the rarity? What is it?
So I'll rattle off my criteria, or what I've seen in my time collecting and being this hobby. Supply set scarcity. So if you're talking about an overly printed book, a la New Mutants 100, if there was like 100,000 of the first print, not too many people are going to care about the now 75,000 copies of the second print. Also, even though it is the inception of the new, what was that, X-Force team that came out of New Mutants 100, it was at a time when people didn't care. Like a lot of those printings that happened in the 90s with Marvel on their bigger books are just, people just didn't care. Like there is no rarity to them. There's just, so you have the supply factor. The unique cover art. So that's another killer too. If you didn't change anything but like the back color of the cover, again, case in point, 608 first printing versus 608 second printing. You're getting a different cover art. Captain America 17 versus Captain America 17 second printing. You're getting a character first appearance, so first cover appearance, and unique art as that as well. So I think it's a couple different factors, but ultimately, if you're just recycling old cover art, it's not gonna you're gonna miss the mark. Like case in point, Venom 3, like the 1 and the 2 and the previews were all the same color, just slightly different color variants. The one that everybody chased was the third printing because that was his first appearance. Noel's first appearance on cover. So
I would say I agree with you on that, but I think there are a few books in the very recent modern era that break that. I mean, Moon Girl 1 second print, it's just different color trade dress, same art, and the second print is as far eclipsed the first print now. Invincible Iron Man, the Riri books, if you can get that second print, for most of those, they in a 9.8, they're higher value. But yeah, I think they should all have new art. That's something I value.
That didn't follow logic. I'm just saying, that one doesn't follow my logic, so I am a little perplexed by why those matter so much. Again, it might just be the supply thing versus the unique cover art. But yeah, typically those major criteria are the ones that seem to move the needle as from what I've seen historically. But Rob, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask Tony, was it value or was it print run that was higher? But I'm a advocate for Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur. I collected it because I love the character, so I covered all my bases as best I could.
Yeah, to me it almost seems like it has to have that heat in the first few years. If there's a later print book, even if people don't know about it, even if the rarity isn't there, if it isn't a popular book, people might never care about it. Maybe they should, but they don't. But there could be a book from 6 months ago that, a couple people talk about it, whatever it is. Somebody points out the print run was lower. Some of these new moderns, I mean, we live in the era of these later printings. 8 years ago, nobody gave a crap about late printings, which is why those are so valuable, because they were beat up, they were thrown away, nobody cared about them. Now, I mean, if there's a book that has a known first appearance, there's people buying 50 copies of the second printing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different world we live in right now. But sometimes it does seem kind of arbitrary, like which ones become keys, like Monstrous #2, the second printing, way more valuable than the first printing or the third printing.
Yeah.
It's on that level of who cares more versus on the second print. If I had to really choose, it's like there's a second print #2 on Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur. I think it's just because everybody was reading the story and wanted more. But the second print Moon Girl #2 has a variant too, but the second print, it's still $3 on eBay. So I mean, no second prints are alike. That's just kind of what the theme is here.
Yeah, the market will decide what the market decides.
All right, and then speaking of Venom 3, we have two more second and third printings. So there's the Amazing Spider-Man 569 second print and Venom 3 third prints.
So this is a prime example of when you're firing on all cylinders. You got the scarcity / supply thing going for you. You got the unique cover art and also a character's first cover appearance. So it's just, so not only is this book the first appearance of, not Toxin, but Anti-Venom. So it's Anti-Venom's first appearance and also their first cover appearance. So you've got the same effect that you have going on with this Venom third print as well. It's just, it's the planets and the stars aligning. People, I mean, and this is an amazing cover art too. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the first print is cool, but like this is just great cover art for that 569. Like that's, I mean, I'm by no means a symbiote like fanboy, but like that's one of the ones where I'd be hard pressed to want to like let it go if I got my hands on one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That book set the tone.
No, it absolutely did. You're right. Like it's one of those situations where it's like it showed creators and artists is like, this is what happens when you bring your A game. Like when you bring your A game to the table and you just have like this just like so like deep of a cover going on, like the complexity of what's happening in the artwork and things like that. Yeah, it's like it's a no-brainer type of situation.
Yeah, and JJ was asking about the price so much on the Venom 3 third print. I mean, we had it yesterday on Dealer Flipside, and a 9.8 for the Venom 3 that sold for $500, and like I want to say that auction was like less than a week old. Like,
and
probably,
and that's down for that book. Like there was a point like this past summer where that was a $2,000 book. So that's another one too. Like, you know, not to give away cornbread, but you might want to start picking these bad boys up again. There seems to be, like we talked about it last night on Dealer Flipside, that Marvel seems to be laying the groundwork to introduce No. How long we're waiting on it to happen, I don't know. But like, why call, like, at no point in the MCU had they ever called Hela's gear the Necro Sword. And they expressly used that language in What If T'Challa became a Guardian of the Galaxy. Like they went out their way to call that out by the collector. So, and you got Gorda God Butcher coming. I mean, you know, it may be, you know, a little too rich for most people's blood to throw $425 to $500 on a gamble like that. But man, if Gore has a flashback, I mean, like for anybody who saw Shang-Chi, they love their flashbacks. So if Gore does a flashback and you see that image of him walking through his desolate planet and seeing the skewered version of Null laying there, and he takes the all black from him or the Necro Sword from him, this book goes back to being a $2,000 book the very next day. So if it's worth the risk to you, it might be worth picking up a copy. So yeah, this is one of them great second printings that, you know, really could pay dividends if you get your hands on one.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next set of books. These aren't related together, but I just kind of put them in together. So we have Spawn issue number 166 and Captain Marvel number 17 second print.
So this is a funny scenario because the Spawn 166, depending on the outlet that you pursue, will sometimes call this a variant cover and sometimes they call it a second printing. So it really is kind of a toss-up of how you want to look at it. But I think there was a big enough gap between their release. Again, I wasn't reading or collecting Spawn at this time, so I don't know if, because I mean, you typically, and again, rest of the audience and the panel, I determined a second printing to be a book that has a different date of release than the original first, or the first printing.
Right.
Even if it's the next day, it is a second printing or a later printing in my eyes. Which is why I always had the question about how are some of these store variants still considered first printings in some situations, because they're not showing up until almost 2 to 3 weeks after book one came out in some situations. But yeah, so this is one of those situations where it's like, depending on who you ask, this could be considered a second printing. By some, it could be considered a variant cover, but I want to say it did have a later release date than the first printing. So
that's kind of interesting because Dennis from Wonder World Comics, he had Taskmaster 3 come out, and that was actually considered a second printing. Like, because it came out the same, I think it had the same release date as a second print, and you know, it has the character on the cover too. So I thought that was a pretty interesting fact that I don't know what criteria that it takes to make it a second print, other than release date and all that. But
yeah.
That was a homage actually of the other book over there, the Captain Marvel second print.
Yes.
Yeah, that was on purpose. It was intentional.
Yeah, which is also, so this is, and again, like I was getting back into the hobby when this book dropped. At the time the Captain Marvel 17 second print came out, I'm trying to think, had there been other scenarios where you had the disputed first appearance type scenario? Or was this like the book that like really this character laid the groundwork for that heavily disputed like origin type scenario? Because I don't remember this happening before her popping up on the scene, where it's like, well, it could be this book or it could be another 7 books that we deem to be the book. And then It continued to happen almost every year after that. Like case in point, I'm blanking. The Batman Who Laughs. That was another example of 2 books dropped the same day, and the market determined that that Teen Titans book was the book versus the actual main storyline of the of Dark Knight Metal being his first appearance. Even when the creator themselves said, no, this is the book. And they're like, nah, screw you. We want this book. We want the Teen Titans because it's got a lower print run. And so that's now the book.
Yeah, and he was on the cover in the background too, because I think it's Dark Knight Metal 2 with Wonder Woman. That Del Auto one was on fire for a little bit. But then it's like you see the Batman who laughs in the background in the first print. The second print goes for nothing. Or the cover B goes for nothing on the Teen Titans 12.
Yeah. I think the old Marvel playbook was always this. We always got first appearances the same way. You know, the issue before, the last page splash, boom, there's whatever, War Machine, there's Wolverine, you get one image, and then the next issue is considered the first appearance. I mean, that's how they did it story-wise for decades, for the most part. But yeah, it seemed like with this Captain Marvel story, they really slow rolled her intro. Like they purposefully, you know, let's have her just in one frame here, and then a couple frames here, and then. And so yeah, for us, nobody else in the world cares about it, but for us, when we're trying to figure out cameo, first appearance, this is where the pain started.
Yeah. And then you fast forward to almost 10 years later or so, DC being like, here's the official buying list for this character. It's like, screw you guys. Like now, like this, you could say happened a little more organically. Like people were just like, oh, well, I'm going to put her here. I'm going to put her there. And these guys are going to be walking down the street wearing a Halloween costume and, you know, whatever. Whereas DC strip is like, we're trying to take your money. Like we're like, or Punchline being like, here's the Punchline buying list. Like she's in like half an ass cheeks in this panel. I think she's handing over a cell phone over in this one. I think that was her beret by the kitchen sink over in this book. Like, I didn't give into it, but there were plenty of people out there in the market who were definitely like, yes, please. Like she's about to be the next Harley Quinn. I'm about to buy all these books up. And they got stuck holding a lot of books for a character that didn't seem like anybody cared about like 2 months later, because then they're like, but wait, now we have Miracle Molly and she's going to be the next, you know, it's like, man, no, you burnt me once. I'm not playing this game with you again. So,
yeah, I do think this Captain Marvel, along with on the last graphic, that Anti-Venom book, it feels like those are the 2 late printing books that started this craze that we're on. Cause they were popular right away. They weren't $1,000 books right away, but you know, they were sought after right away. And since then, everybody's trying to catch that next Anti-Venom or that next Captain Marvel 17-second print.
Yeah. I mean, it was lightning in a bottle. It was organic, you know, as organic as, you know, a mass marketing scheme can be. But it was organic in the relative scheme of things. And again, I think, you know, companies, every time they try to make it happen and make a character a thing and make like a book, like a later printing book, the book, it usually never works out. Like I don't think I've seen it where it was ever forced and it actually worked out for a company. But when it happens organically, man, people are just like, oh, this over time and you know, iterations of a character, whether it be multiple years in the case of Giant Size versus X-Men 94, or in a couple of months in the case of these books. But it happens organically. The market determines what the market wants, and yeah, hopefully you got the right book when it's all said and done.
One thing also I want to say about this on the Spawn, but this is the part of the run that was like super low print too for the entire series. So not a lot of people were, you know, collecting the Spawn books. So I'm actually surprised to see a second print in this part of the run.
Again, that's probably the reason why it's weirdly argued as being potentially a variant cover. But again, it did not come out on the same day, to my knowledge. So.
All right. So on the left, we have Marvel's Superhero Secret Wars #1, the second print, and Amazing Spider-Man #654, second print.
Yeah, so this was one that I threw out there because I didn't even realize that there was a second printing of Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. I didn't like number one. I've never seen it in the wild ever. I've never paid attention to it up on the wall. I probably have seen it and didn't even pay attention.
Same.
Probably because again, if it was in a bag and board, you just would have seen the Spider-Man head there versus the newsstand. But I think they even changed up because the first printing doesn't have the black Spider-Man head. It has another image right there. If it's the direct version, I just don't remember what it is on top of my head. Let me see if I can find it.
Is it the swinging Spider-Man? Is that what it is?
Quite possibly.
Because I want to say they did this for another issue in the run, like issue 2 or 3 or something like that.
So
it looks like it's just the whitehead Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The outline.
Yep. So yeah, whitehead Spider-Man, and then they switched to for second print, it's gonna have the black Spider-Man head. So like, yeah, with me as a child with that nuance of a difference, I probably would have never even noticed. I probably may have had second printings of this book and not even realized it because I'm a child and that was not something on my radar at all. So
I wonder if the second print.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if the second print has the blue Galactus error.
It does not.
Okay.
No, that was only a first printing thing, which is funny actually. Shout outs to Red Hood. I just sent him 2 copies of the number 1 that were both. One was a newsstand, one was a direct edition, and both are the blue Thanos copies. Though they're not worth anything because they were everywhere. That mistake was made a lot during that time period. So, and on the flip side of that, we have this, ASM. What number is that? 654 second print. So this would have been first Flash Thompson as Venom. And what the cover one? What was the cover one for this? Or the first printing cover? This is just another example where it's like, yeah, it's internal art because this was like the final splash for the book. And this was definitely during that time period when that was the wave for Spider-Man books on that Dan Slott run. Like pretty much every single second or third printing of that Dan Slott run was just internal splash art or an internal splash page from the run. And that also caused another stink about because you had a later printing. Yeah, so this actually was another prime example of the whole like punchline fiasco where it's like, oh no, man, like 797 is going to be Red Goblin's first appearance, and then it's like nothing in the guts, but people were doing variant covers with him on it, and store variants with him on it, all the way as far back as like I think 797, and then it was like 796, 797, 798. He finally appears, and then he's on the cover of also 799 as well. And 800. But yeah, like it was like multiple books during that like go down swinging arc leading up to 800 where people kept getting like artists didn't know which book was going to be the book, and so anytime somebody commissioned a store variant, they were like put Red Goblin on it. So there were multiple books where that Red Goblin was on the cover, and it was like, nope, not in the guts, and the market did not take to those books.
Do you guys prefer, do you have a preference for original art versus interior art on a second print?
I mean, I prefer original, but if it's a hot like splash page, like again, this Dan Slott run like did it to death. It was like you were guaranteed not to get original art for any one of these because it was always going to be a second printing of a splash page inside. But if it's the right internal artwork, I think it can work. So
yeah, I can give you a perfect example. That the one that comes right to mind for me is Something Is Killing the Children, issue number 7, second print. I really like that cover, and that's like an interior splash page. And yeah, something about that just pops. I mean, I know in some of the earlier issues that the second prints like had original art that was different, or second or third, I should say. But yeah, that's the one that's something that's like a panel that's taken that sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, that Thanos 15, that fourth print with the black Silver Surfer black on it, I think that was interior art. And that was beautiful.
Yeah. Like I said, when it's done properly, it works. But like when you do it to death and it's like, okay, this is just now old hat, like, yeah, you're losing me on it at that point.
Yeah, or if the original art that's on like a later printing is not very good at all, like that kind of like it kind of makes me like eh. And then I also dislike like when previews, like, or you know, when Diamond's doing the their FOC and they have a second print and there's just like no image for it at all, and so it's like stores have to guess like how many they have to order, and then all of a sudden like, oh, it's a really cool cover and it really pops. I would have ordered, you know, X amount like beforehand. And then,
Door six second printing that like, you know, the Thanos with the gauntlet and the hammer and the army of the dead behind him, and they hid that image, and then it came out and it was like, okay, that's kind of hot, like that works. But that was during that time period also because I was firmly back into the hobby like when that stuff was going on. And I remember going into an LCS before I moved out west and just looking at all the second prints they had on the wall, and there was not a single piece of original art to be found. It was Immortal Hulk, just internal artwork reused. You know, Thor, internal artwork reused. Like everything that Marvel was doing at that point, they're like, nah, we're not trying to pay people. Like we'll grab some we already own and we'll throw it in. I mean, shit. Like McFarlane like straight up said that he was not going to sign books for that Wolverine and the Venom like 1 in 100 or 1 in 100, 1 in 500, 1 in 1000s because he was like, no, I didn't authorize you to take a random splat. Like they edited an internal piece of artwork to isolate out the character they wanted to put on the cover, and then just slapped it onto, you know, as cover art. Or even worse, reusing and modifying existing cover artwork from another book. Like case in point, that Wolverine was what? That was a cover page from Spider-Man, the 1990 Spider-Man series with Spider-Man and Wolverine on it. So they removed Spider-Man, blew up Wolverine, and then made him the cover of the Return of Wolverine 1 in 1000. And yeah, McFarlane was like, "Oh hell no, I'm not signing that," which for good reason.
But so you're talking about the Return of Wolverine, the 1 in 500 and the 1 in 1000?
Yeah,
it's a color and a sketch.
Yeah.
So I have a colored version that's actually signed by McFarlane.
Oh, he actually was willing to sign it?
Yeah, I mean, I sent it out to the CGC.
And he signed it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, the private signing. I mean, from my understanding, he won't sign the Venom remastered ones, like the 1 in 1000, the 1 in 500, where they reuse the ASM 316 cover, then something else. I don't remember the other Venom cover. And then I noticed also the Spawn thank you that he won't sign.
Yeah.
You know, you brought up Immortal Hulk, and I think that's a perfect example of what you said before. Immortal Hulk was a great series. It had great covers, and almost every one of those issues had a second print, and they all sucked. They were so bad. It looked like they just took not even a splash page, but like a whole just interior panel page and just moved it to the front cover. They were nothing.
I'm looking at them right now. That is legitimately what they did for almost all of those. It is the last panel basically from the book itself with the text removed and a big ass block across the bottom of it that's in black and then has the Immortal Hulk logo in it. Like they did it for 12, they did it for 13, they did it for 15. Like every single book from that run, one through probably 20 or 25 was just like that. It was just internal artwork with the text removed and not even like a good piece of internal artwork. I mean, for Christ's sakes, one of them is just like Joe Fixit in Banner's body saying it's Joe, and then it says Immortal Hulk across the bottom. I'm like, why would anybody give a shit about that? Like, and also you just gave away the twist of the story. Like don't do that. Like, what are you doing, guys? Like, you know, cut that shit out. So, I don't know.
And I feel like also the market has a slightly different opinion about second and later printings nowadays compared to when a lot of these that are popping really hard, like
I mean,
how
yeah,
people how people treat them, I guess.
So perfect. Okay. So here's the analogy that just popped in my head. I'm a former sneakerhead. Like I'm a collector of things, and I'm a former sneakerhead. And it's the same logic of Nike releasing Jordans and being like, "Hey, here's the Jordan whatever in a colorway you never asked for." And sometimes it works, and sometimes them shit sit on the shelves. And more times than not, people see through your cash grab, and they're like, "Oh man, I didn't really want Jordan 3s in like this random shade of blue." Cool, you're gonna have plenty of those on the shelf at Foot Locker come next week. Sometimes, something lands. But yeah, like it's the same logic of Nike putting out a weak color version of a Jordan 5. It's like, who asked for that? Like nobody asked for that, and now you're gonna be stuck with them. Congratulations, you fucked up. Like, so it's the same logic. It's like, don't get lazy and not like be in touch with your fan base and your market and put something out there that's not going to hit the mark, because them shits are going to sit. Like, and it's exactly what happened. Is it wasn't organic, it was forced, it was clearly a cash grab, and that's what people ended up with. So
all right, and for our last set of books, we have TMNT issue number 1, the second print and the third print.
So yeah, this is just another no-brainer. Like, this is one of those classic stories where where people couldn't get a first print, people couldn't get a second print, and they will settle for any version of this book. And be careful though, because there are plenty of counterfeits of them joints out there too. But yeah, this is one of the books where, like, it was the indie book, super low print run. Or at least we like to believe that. As many of them as I've seen in my life would lead me to believe otherwise. But it's an indie book that, for by modern day standard, had a low print run. And yeah, it's to coin a phrase, it's iconic. It's an iconic book. So yeah, this is one of those printings where it doesn't matter. Like, don't be that person who is flipping through a magazine box and sees a copy of this in there and goes, "Oh man, it's a third printing." Who gives a shit? It's the Turtles. Like, buy it. This ain't the time. And I used to be one of those people, like, with certain books where I'm like, oh, well, it's not a 9, like, in that same logic of, well, it's not going to be a 9.8. So I'm leaving first appearances of characters in the back issue bins, because at that point it was 9.8 or bust in my eyes. And I was like, no, like, the market has shown us that, like, it all sells. And if it's important enough to somebody, pick that shit up and buy it. So.
Hey Carter, you're kind of legendary for pulling stuff out of long boxes. Have you noticed any differences in over the last 5 years in hunting second prints? Are retailers are they changing their habits on how they keep, sell, or price them, or are they still out of the loop?
I was able to find certain second prints just the other day, like $50 second prints, like for cover price. I personally haven't noticed a difference. I just know that there are some stores that just don't order second prints at all. And I mean at all. And those stores, like, I like going to them, but you kind of know what you're going to get and know what you're not going to get. So that doesn't make it as fun. So I like to go to the stores that are good on ordering second prints. Even if it's not a lot, you might find a hot book, you know what I mean? Like a hot second print or something like that. So yeah, but I really personally haven't noticed the difference. But I just know that the stores that do order the second prints, I like going there. I like going to those stores.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a big city and, outside of Houston. So there's a lot of stores I go to there's a couple stores I go to that always order second prints. Like, I don't know what it is about that, but they just do. And after it's been out for a while, they put in their back issue bin, and it's usually always cover price. And for example, I was putting together the Marvel Legacy second prints homage covers, and I'm like 3 away from completing that set. But anytime I was looking for any of those issues, I would go to like 2 well-known shops that I knew that would always order second prints, and they always had them for cover price. So I'm not complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they would have multiple sometimes, and I just scoop them all up because why not?
Absolutely. So,
but I think it's
go
important to do your research on second and later printings, and not just to pick up any second or later printing. You know what I mean? Like, I think that should be the big takeaway from this conversation. Honestly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like, again, I keep joking, like, somebody referred to me as a profiteer in the comments, so I'm just going to lean into it. But at its core, buy what you like. Like, yeah, this is a spec show. We are going to talk about ways to make you money. But like, think what you will about me and the rest of this panel. Like, we are collectors first and foremost. We just use collecting as a means of funding our habit. Like, if you can flip a couple books to buy you the books that you always wanted, why not do so? Because I'd much rather use profits from books or either trade my books than ever give you my cash money. So with that same logic, buy what you like. Like, specking on things isn't everything. Like, if a cover resonates with you and you really feel like it's awesome, like, buy that. So, support that creator, support that artist. Like, and if it pans out that, like, 5-6 years later, you ended up picking the right one and you picked the right horse, and high five and a thumbs up. But if you're happy with your purchase, then case Ross Rock.
Exactly.
All right. I think that pretty much does it for the show today. I want to thank the 114 viewers that are watching us live. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Later.